Good morning, members, officers, and Mr. Ennier will be joining us later. Have we any apologies?
Apologies from Councillor Jenkins, Chair.
Right. Any declarations of interest? Okay, no, thank you.
Chair, should I declare that I'm on Newport Transport?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Linden, Councillor Linden.
And me, Chair. I'm on Newport Transport as well.
Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, I believe, accuracy, are they a reasonable record? Yeah, okay, everyone, thank you. Matters arising then, please. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of ones sort of technical. As far as we did ask at the last meeting, that we had an update on the status of the request for a written response regarding the community parenting strategy, not implementing recommendations before being presented to Cabinet, and the Strategic Director of Transformation of Corporate agreed to provide a response as soon as possible. That's appearing under the Scrutiny advisory reports, but it was raised under the minutes, so I just suggested that it's put back in the minutes, please.
Of course.
And you will take that up with the Director of Social Services?
Yes, I know they have been working on a response.
Yeah, this is the Director of Transformation. And the second one was under the Forward Work Programme of the last meeting. We did suggest bringing forward the Anti-Poverty Strategic Action Plan to this meeting. If our next meeting is going to be cancelled, because otherwise we would have only had a one-item agenda. So perhaps that could be added, and as a matter arising, I'm just wondering why we haven't actually received an update. I appreciate it's not all year.
I have discussed this with the Scrutiny advisor outside the meeting. Would you like to brief the members, please?
Yeah, of course. So about the same time that you made the request, the Strategic Director of Social Services emailed to say that the report couldn't be presented when it was scheduled for because the data wasn't ready. So we rescheduled that. You've seen it in our draft forward work programme for next year, so that's in July. I would suggest if committee want another update, we request a 6-monthly update after that, and then we will have seen, as the chair requested, those 2 updates before the end of the council term.
Yes,
if that's what you're content with.
I'm very keen that we see progress on this subject. That we're all really signed up to the anti-poverty agenda for Newport.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, does that complete the minutes? Okay, then can we deal with the substantive item for today and invite Mr. Ennier to come forward and present his petition. I remind the members of the committee we are asked to hear the petition. I, Mr. Ennier, consider the contents of the petition and determine whether to take any action in relation to this petition. Mr. Ennier, we'll 5 minutes to talk. Samantha will time you, and I'll tell you when you've got a minute left, okay?
Thank you. So I want to talk about the old green roundabout, and there are plans from Transport for Wales to remove it and replace it with a traffic light system. So starting off with logistics of this, 2,800 people have filled out a public transport survey against large amount of them against the project. 1,773 people as it stands have signed the petition against the removal of the old green roundabout. So what are Transport for Wales actually going to do? Well, they're going to replace the old green roundabout at a cost of estimated £35 million, which could rise to £40 million with inflation. And they're going to replace it with a 7-way traffic light system. 7 sets of traffic lights. 3 of those sets will be outside the Riverfront Theatre, but will have to be synchronised with those on the Old Green Junction that is proposed. So on the junction itself, you will have 4 sets of traffic lights. This has all been confirmed by Newport Council. 4 sets of traffic lights. So you will be sat at a set of traffic lights waiting for 2 minutes for that traffic light to turn from green back to, well, from red to green and then green back to red. But there's 3 other sets of traffic lights that have to do this first before yours actually kicks in. So you'll be waiting 6 minutes for the other 3 sets of traffic lights before your set of traffic lights will change. A 6 minutes waiting time, and then that's if you get through the traffic of the first attempt to get through the traffic lights that you're stuck in. Now, if you don't, potentially you could be waiting up to 12 minutes in traffic. And this is where it gets interesting. And this is why everybody is opposing to the change in the roundabout. Transport for Wales, in an FOI 2 years ago, have revealed that there are 3,000 vehicles passing over the roundabout every hour in the rush hour. That equates to 500 vehicles every 10 minutes. Think about it now. You're potentially waiting 12 minutes to get through a traffic light across that road junction when there's 500 other vehicles doing the same every 10 minutes. It's going to be absolute carnage. The city centre will be gridlocked, and the primary school child could work out the statistics on this. Now, in terms of impact, I think this is going to really hit businesses hard in the city centre. You need to look at case studies from other towns and cities that have done this. In West London, when the congestion charge along Oxford Street was first introduced there, John Lewis saw an 8.2% decline in footfall. Oxford city centre have gone down the route of bike lanes, bus lanes, active travel. And what's happened? It's failed. They've had to introduce a congestion charge, which was introduced in October of last year. It's now heavily dependent on park and ride systems to get people in and out of the city centre in Oxford. And then we have to look at reasoning. This is part of the Burns Commission, all part of the alternatives to reduce traffic on the M4. However, when you read the Burns Commission report, a lot of the proposals in there actually stem from 2013 and 2015. For example, all of the railway stations that are now mooted to be built along the South Wales corridor were actually originally proposed in a map, a metro map from 2015. That map included Caerleon, railway stations in Llanwern, in Newport West over by Maes Glas, railway stations right across the South East Wales network. Thank you. And when you look at all of these proposals in the Burns Commission report, they're not alternatives to the M4 Relief Road. They were meant to run alongside the M4 Relief Road. Upgrades to our roads, upgrades to our rail services. I look at the Burns Commission report and I see it as a quango. I see it that was something that was set up after the M4 Relief Road was scrapped. It was set up simply with the sole purpose in terms of damage limitation. It's not an alternative. The proposals will gridlock the city centre, and I will finish on that point.
Thank you very much. Perfect timing. If you wouldn't mind, if you go back
Yes,
to the gallery.
Unless there's any questions and clarification first.
Right, okay. Points of clarification. Anything Mr. Rennie has said that you might want him to expand on?
We're talking about the petition, actually. I mean,
Well, what he's actually said this morning.
And the contents
because
of the
what,
petition.
with respect, I think we need to clear it that Mr. Rennie has very clearly expressed his views on the whole scheme of the roundabout, on the Burns report, on a whole series of other things. So presumably, my understanding was that this committee was going to be looking at the petition, ask questions about the petition, not the whole wider agenda around the Burns report and transport.
Fair excuse me, fair comment. But if you believe he said anything that's absolutely outrageous and has no basis in fact, you can certainly ask for clarification on that. But I think he's been fairly measured in his approach to talking about the petition. Anyone else? Do you want any points of clarification? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, thank you for outlining the petition there, Mr. Mayor. One thing I'd like to clarify is there are already 5 sets of traffic lights in the area that you've named in your petition, with regards to 3 at the roundabout and 2 outside the riverfront. So I was wondering, where are you saying that the other 2 are going?
So when you actually look at the old green roundabout and you replace it with a 4-way junction, there will be a junction leading out to the Queensway past the railway station, a junction leading out across Town Bridge towards St Julian's, a junction leading out past Shaftesbury towards Malpas Road, and of course 2 junctions leading down onto the Queensway by the Riverfront Theatre. So at present, you will need another 2 sets of traffic lights, because there is no set of traffic lights going in and out towards Malpas Road and towards Shaftesbury.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, just another point. I might not be allowed to say this, but I will say it. Can I have it understood, please, that this is to do with the Minister of Transport at Kent's Gates, and it isn't something that's been put forward by Newport City Council?
Yep, that's a perfectly reasonable comment, Councillor Davis. And
Thank you, Chair.
Outlined in the papers. Councillor Cox.
I've got 2 or 3 questions, if I can, please, Chair. The petition says that nobody wants these changes, and this morning Mr. Enya has told us that everyone is against these proposals, and I would just like to understand how Mr. Enya's comes to those conclusions, because if just to explain the background to my question, is that we've got a petition with respect. Can I say that before I say anything else, I'm really happy to receive a petition. I think it's important that councillors, people like myself, actually hear what the community think, hear the variety of opinion from the community. But we should never ever be shy of receiving opinion. So, but obviously we need to judge the extent to which this opinion paints a true picture of what's actually happening in the city. And he said that nobody wants it, everyone's against it. Yet, with respect, the petition, correct my maths if I've got this wrong, but the petition has been signed by 1.4% of the adult population of Newport. And you may say, well, okay, that's what petitions are like. But I mean, if we just contrast it with the recent petitions, I mean, the one recently in Killeen was signed actually by 70% of the adult population of Killeen. And here we have a petition that is signed by 1.4%. And I'm not quite sure how that allows us to make a statement that everybody's against it. And just to further on that point, that again, if you look at the outcome of the consultation, for example, it's certainly not true that everyone was against it. There were groups, for example, just looking at it here now in front of me, there were groups such as bus users, for example.
Councillor Cox, could you come to a question?
Yeah. Well, the question is, on the basis of the fact that only 1.4% of people have signed this petition, and it's been on social media for weeks and weeks and weeks, and the consultation made it quite clear that there were quite significant groups who actually thought this was a good idea, and that's quite clear if you read it. I don't know how we can say everybody's against it. I'd like to understand how we come to that conclusion.
Well, without prolonging this debate, I think perhaps he's used a little bit of hyperbole, and
I'm happy to answer the question. So,
well,
it's up to you.
Answer the question. Yeah.
No, all I would say in respect of that is, as many as you know, I've got a blogging page which has reached and was read over the last 90 days by 8.2 million people. I've campaigned in the past for the reopening of the splash park, for the building of the M4 Relief Road. I have to say, hand on heart, I have never seen a public backlash to the extent that I have seen in respect to the removal of the old green roundabout. And it may well be a bit of hyperbology in terms of the way the petition was worded, but I'm confidently to say that probably 80% of the public would be against this move. And we could sit here all morning and argue about facts and stats, but at the end of the day, the public will always have their say at election time.
Okay, thank you for that. Did you have another question?
Yeah, again, it was just about understanding how some of these conclusions arrived at. And it says that this proposal will take the city back to the 60s. I mean, first of all, on the business of traffic lights, I'm no traffic expert, but it's patently obvious that if you have a set of roundabouts going round a roundabout, everybody doesn't sit waiting for 15 minutes. I mean, look at the Corrigan roundabout in Cardiff. I mean, it just don't work like that. But I was interested in this comparison with the 60s because, I mean, obviously a lot's changed. I mean, the M4 wasn't even there until 1966. There's been a massive increase in rail traffic. There's the self-distributor road has been built. All those things have changed since the 60s. And I was just interested in what actual sort of research basis does Mr. Ennie have any actual research done on the old green roundabout, or which leads him to draw the conclusion that we'll go back to the 60s, because there's a lot of evidence, in fact, to show that it won't do that at all. So it's really understanding the sort of evidence research base which has led to some of the scrutiny conclusions that are being made.
So 2 points on that. Number one, in terms of the actual structural format of the old green roundabout and its removal, it would go back to a functioning road junction that was similar to the 1960s and 70s with a four-way junction. And the second point, I greatly appreciate Councillor Cox's comment on road changes, the new SDR road and the M4 Relief Road, well, that hasn't been built, the M4. What he forgets is that traffic has actually increased, that the number of vehicles on the road since the 1970s has actually ramped up by over 25%. That's a 25% increase in traffic, and what we do know in terms of statistics, and I've already explained it once, is that there are 3,000 vehicles in the rush hour travelling over the junction every hour, 500 every 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. You said you had 3 questions.
Right, but there's no actual body of research has been done on this, and I take it from
No, Transport for Wales may have done research, but we don't.
Those stats are from an FOI from Transport for Wales.
Yeah, we're sticking with the petition. Okay. Councillor Linton, did you indicate you wanted to speak?
Sorry, Chair? No,
Did you
2 questions were asked what I was going to ask.
Sorry, Councillor Linton, was that a no?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I couldn't quite hear you, Chair.
Wanted to speak?
No, I'm fine, Chair. Some of the questions was already asked.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, going back to the wording of it, we say that the public consultation was a stitch up. Could you elaborate on that a bit, please, just to explain what you mean by that?
So, in terms of a stitch up, I think that's a very apt terminology to describe it, because when the public consultation was released, there was one proposal on the table. There were no alternatives. We could build a bike lane through the existing roundabout, so whereby the little tiny footbridge that goes through the middle of the roundabout, replace that, widen it with a bigger footbridge to incorporate a bike lane. It's an alternative to what they had proposed. There were no alternatives. There was no option to say no change. So when the public consultation was released, the public were rightly angered. But what we've also since learned is that at the time the public consultation was released, Transport for Wales, they hadn't even worked out how many traffic lights were going to be on the roundabout. They were still in the process of working the numbers. And I know this from a Freedom of Information request from 2 years ago that was submitted to Transport for Wales. So in the views of the public, quite rightly, it is a stitch up.
I mean, just bearing in mind, Chair, Transport for Wales, the Burns Commission stated as their aim it was to make it easier for travel by public transport, walking and cycling. That was their aim with the consultation. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that was their aim. So is that what you're saying? That's the reason they didn't have the other option?
I don't know what their reasons are for not having other options, but to just present one option to the public is a pretty limited option.
Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a few issues to do with the wording. Some of it's been covered by Councillor Cox already, to be honest. But just going back to this issue of that there was no other option. First of all, I want to be careful how I phrase this now. The consultation wasn't so much about options or what people thought of the options. The consultation, as I read it, was more about what people thought the effects would be if, and this is the thing, if that proposal was taken forward. Now, the proposals that come from the Burns Commission, as we know, they're not come from Newport Council. The consultation was run by Transport for Wales, again, not Newport Council. So the council's not responsible for this. We just advertised that consultation on our website just to give people the opportunity to take part in the consultation. But the consultation was asking what people's views would be if that proposal was taken forward. But as part of the responses that were offered, oppose was an option for all of the proposed changes that were in that consultation. So for each of the three options that were shown, one of the options you had there was oppose. Also, there was a text box at the end of that which allowed you to put in your own words what your views were, so you could explicitly state that no change needed. Was you could put that in the comments. And looking at the responses, 550 people, or well, 549 to be exact, actually took up that option of explicitly stating themselves that their preferred option would be no change. So, to say there was no option there to say that is a little bit misleading, to be honest. I've got a couple of other points as well, but I'll stick with that for now because I think that's part of the current discussion. Thank you, Chair.
I'll just clarify that. I read it here that of the 2,500 survey respondents, over half thought these wouldn't make any difference at all, and that was consulted with bus users and cyclists and the general public. Or have I got that wrong? Was that what you were referring to? I've got 2,500.
I'm just scanning through my notes now, Councillor Evans. I've got 2,500 responses to the survey, which is roughly 1.4% of the population. Councillor Cox has already covered that. Stolen my thunder there. I got 89% of the respondents had access to a car. So obviously it was mainly car users that were responding to the consultation. I haven't got the exact figures here. I've just made brief notes on it, but I got significantly more people said they thought the proposals would encourage more use of buses, more walking and more cycling than didn't think that. And the vast majority, I have got the vast majority of respondents thought it wouldn't make any difference.
Okay,
55% felt the proposal wouldn't make any difference, and on page 4.
You're not asking Mr. any questions.
No, I just get clarification.
Right.
Sorry.
Well,
yeah, sorry, I'm just answering Mr. Councillor Evans's point there. Sorry, I suppose it's not really a question. It's just clarifying the point that Mr. Enya made about there being no option to say oppose, and I think there was. Maybe not explicitly in that sense, but there was an option to oppose the options and to say in your own words that you didn't think any change was needed. That option was there.
Okay, but you don't need to answer that. I think it's self-answered. Right. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Enya on the petition itself? Not what Transport for Wales has said, not what the Burns Commission has said, and not what all these other people who aren't present today have said. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You put your case very clearly. Would you like to go back to the public gallery? And now the committee will discuss, as it said in the briefing notes, whether to take any action in relation to this petition.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I have to head off back to work, but yeah, I will watch your debate at a later time, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay. The contents of the petition we've had a fairly good look at already, but it's open for debate now if you want to look at that again. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I think the one thing that stands out to me with regards to the petition is that it's misleading to the people that are going to answer it, because I noticed with some of the comments that are made opposing the green change, refer to Newport City Council. And I think it should have been fairer to state in the petition that it was a Transport for Wales thing and not Newport City Council, because I think going by the remarks, it's people are reading it and thinking that it is Newport Council that are putting forward those recommendations. So I think for me, there would have to be a caveat in the petition to say that it was not Newport City Council.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm just going to clarify with our scrutiny advisor. You can't change the petition. You can't put caveats in there. That's what it is. But can we make notes that go alongside this petition wherever it goes?
You can make recommendations. I mean, we have no say about what is in the petition. That's entirely up to the petitioner. I would say it depends. When you say make notes, do you mean that wording should be clarified, or?
Well, we take up this particular point. We disagree that this petition is fair and that it's been addressed to Newport, but it should perhaps have been addressed to the Welsh Assembly Government.
Oh, we can clarify that in the minutes.
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
Would that satisfy your point? Yeah. So that's the parameter then. So if you want to make some notes that you fundamentally disagree, and we may have to take that to a vote if there's a split decision on this, but we'll go on from there. Right. Councillor Evans was first. Councillor Cox.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm not going to disagree that it's a responsibility of the Welsh Government. What I will say is that this is just one of a series of potential things which could happen, which we need to have a big debate about, because ultimately it will affect the city centre. Now, whatever you say about a particular petition, I mean, if you look at social media about that stupid cycle lane they just put in without consultation, people are going mad about that. And we have got to have a serious debate of where we want Newport to be, how we're going to improve access to the city for all people. And this was one of the recommendations. Okay, if they haven't got the funding for it, we can put it to bed. But I do think, as a council, we need to have a debate about, would we want these proposals in any case? If they had the funding, would that be a top priority for us in the city? I can think of a million ways. You know, I was thinking the other day when I actually tried to get on the bus, we used to have these screens at the bus shelters telling you when the next bus was arriving. Now we've got rid of those, so I've never got them in on the Risker Road for me. So spending money at making that easier, actually having buses which run 7 days a week. And my local bus doesn't run on Sunday, it doesn't run in the evening. So I think, as a general, I'm not being anti-public transport, I think we do need to have a serious debate of whether we actually want schemes like this. If we don't want them as a council, then we can put it to bed and say, well, if you had the money, sorry, we don't want it. Stop talking about it. Stop wasting money on that. What we do want is a better system. We want the railway station, whatever we want. And so that's I think, where we need to have this wider debate.
Councillor Cox, then Councillor Reynolds. Sorry, Councillor
Yeah.
James.
Chair, can I just mention that Councillor James has put in the chat that she wants to ask a question as well?
The scrutiny advisor has just told me that, so Cox, James, Reynolds.
It seems to me, Chair, that what we do with the petition that is to some extent determined by how accurate we think it is. Not accurate in the sense it reflects what people think out there, but whether the claims that are made in the petition are in any way justified by the petition. And it just seems to me an important judgment we need to make before we decide what to do with it. And first of all, I've already said that I would not always sort of welcome receiving the views of the public. That I think it's something we should do as councillors. So on that basis, I think it needs to be clearly noted that this opinion exists. One thing that's not been mentioned actually, where I do strongly agree with the petition, is the concern about preserving the murals in the roundabout. That's something, but certainly I, as a local member, will agree with the petition on. But I do have some really serious reservations about the petition, about the claims it makes. Like, nobody wants this. I've not seen any evidence that has convinced me that statement can really be justified on a petition of this size. Secondly, the claim that we're going back to the 60s, I mean, with respect that the sort of arithmetic that was done over traffic lights just isn't true, is it? I mean, about 7 traffic lights. I don't know any way you sit for 15 minutes waiting to get through the lights. So the sort of basis of it is very dubious. The world is so different now from the 60s. There may be more cars on the road, but there's now a motorway and there's now a southern distributor road. There's now far more people using the train. So I just on that point that, clearly the whole claims like that would have been justified by some kind of research basis where they haven't. And so I'm very happy as a committee member to support noting we've received it and noting the views that are given it, but I do think it needs some sort of caveats around it, wherever it eventually ends up.
Right, thank you. I don't think it's an option for us to dissect the petition. We've got the petition as a whole. As I said earlier, we can make notes at the bottom if we so wish. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually, I've had to go on my mobile internet, but because I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. So if you don't hear it all, then I'll type it in the chat. Noting what Councillor Cox says about, nobody asked for these changes and so on. But actually, if you take all of that out, the petition does still say what I imagine it was intended to say. So I don't think we should put too much into that. I'm a bit confused as to what Scrutiny Committee can actually do with the petition, given that it's Welsh Government. I mean, our options are either to pass it on within the council or to not pass it on and make a note. As far as I understand, there is no option to refer to Ken Skates or whoever comes after him.
But sorry, Councillor James, yes, there is an option to do that. How far it would get us, I don't know, but certainly there's an option to say, well, hang on, this is not Newport's, it's Welsh Assembly, so let's give it back to the Welsh Assembly. No reason at all we can't do that.
Okay, that's reassuring to know, because I don't think it's in Newport. And actually, before I say it, you know, I think it's probably fairly obvious where my views stand on the old green roundabout and active travel improvements in general. But even were I to agree, I don't think it's in Newport Council's gift to scrap the changes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, when I originally put my hand up, I was going to just make a plea that we bring the conversation back to the petition, because we were in danger of going off on a bit of a tangent, but we've already done that. I'm beginning to suspect that Councillor Cox has hacked into my computer and read all my notes, because he said everything I was going to say. But I do just want to clarify a couple of things, actually, just maybe take a couple of those points slightly further forward. I also had a lot of concerns about the wording in the petition. It was very misleading, I thought, and quite inflammatory in some places. You know, when you're talking about a stitch up with no evidence to back up what that stitch up was supposed to imply or what it meant. And by its very nature, obviously, with a petition, people who reply to that petition will almost certainly agree with it. You know, if you read a petition, you don't agree with it, most people will actually just skip over it and move on to something else. So, you know, taking the results of a petition and then extrapolating that to the view of the majority of the public is quite a dangerous thing to do. Having said that, I think it's important as a scrutiny committee, we do take the views of the public very, very seriously. And I think you've already alluded to this, Chair, I think, but we can't change the petition itself. Obviously, the petition is what it is, and we can't change the results of that petition. But what as a committee we can do is, if we put anything forward in terms of a recommendation to Cabinet or a recommendation to the Council, or even forwarding things on to Welsh Government, what we can do is put our own caveat, our own comments on that petition, I think. We can't change it per se, but what we can do is comment on it and say what we think of the wording, for example, and maybe what the important points are that we can take out of it. Like Councillor Cox, I do agree 100% with we need to protect those murals. You know, we go back a few years ago, we all know the fallout from what happened to the previous mural that was destroyed. None of the current council were involved in that, as far as I know. Certainly none of the current cabinet were involved in that, but we're still dealing with the fallout from that. We can't repeat that mistake. We have to listen to the public. But as I say, the wording of that petition, we need to put some caveats in there, because you know, it is very misleading, I think, and quite dangerous.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. I think protecting the murals, I think we all agree with that, but this is somewhere down the line when we start to look at the implementation of the scheme in detail, if ever. Okay.
Can I just clarify one thing, because it does say the petition to Newport Council Leader and Welsh Government Transport Minister Ken Skates.
Yeah. So
I'm assuming he's already had this.
Again,
position.
we don't know. We make an assumption, yeah.
I mean, I'm happy as a committee that we can't make a decision on there, that the Welsh Government, whoever is in charge after May, receives it. It's a democratic thing to do. We haven't got any overall say. I still think that we should have a position on it, but ultimately, as far as the position goes, then we can't dictate what happens.
Well, certainly this committee can't dictate what happens.
No, so I'm happy for it to go to the depths of the Welsh Government.
Anyone else?
I'm happy for it to go to Welsh Government too, Chair.
Yes, Chair, it's been addressed to the Welsh Government, although the leader's been invited into the petition as well. So I should think we should carry it on forward to the Welsh Assembly and let them, they've come up with the idea. It's for greater connectivity and throughout the city. We need to have a greater in-depth look and see what Newport Transport and other parties involved got to say on the issue as well. So just put this forward to the Welsh Assembly and let them act upon that.
So actually, just to clarify, you could absolutely make a recommendation that you note in the petition within the Newport City Council scape, and we could ask Cabinet to write to Welsh Government for them to consider the petition. if that's what committee are wanting to do.
Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Reynolds.
Yeah, Samantha, I 100% agree. I think that's a perfect proposal, to be honest. I 100% agree with that. I just wanted to clarify as well. We keep talking about the proposals that are being put forward. Can we just make it clear that there aren't any proposals at the moment? There were recommendations from the Burns report. They are only recommendations. The consultation from Transport for Wales was about those recommendations. No one's actually putting forward any proposals yet. No one's actually made any decisions and said this is what we'd like to do. So, you know, again, even that wording in the petition is still very misleading.
But, you know, when somebody drops on your desk and you don't want to deal with it, you say it's ultra virus, and it is beyond our powers to determine.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I can't remember from the petitions policy, and I don't have it in front of me. Obviously, if we bat this away from us now, and then proposals are put forward, and then there's another petition, does that stop Mr. Enya bringing forward such a petition again? I would hope not.
No, if somebody brings forward another petition, so long as they have the regulatory 100+ signatures, they can come back with another petition. If the petition is so similar to this one that our legal officers believe it's already been dealt with, that would probably stop it. But any member of the public, if they can get 100 signatures, can bring forward a petition.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
The second recommendation in terms of what we can do with this petition says that they refer the matter to the cabinet or cabinet member. So if we refer it to cabinet, presumably what that would go on the cabinet agenda and there'd be a debate in cabinet about it. Because I mean, to be fair, you know, we've listened to the proposer, the lead petitioner. To be fair, he's had his say. We've all had our say, and I'm not quite sure what value there is in putting this in an arena where it's all repeated again. I mean, I think my preference would be to refer it to the cabinet member, and the cabinet member then can actually, obviously, presumably would come to the conclusion it's not anything that's in the gift of the council, therefore send it to where it's appropriate, which is the one.
I would take it to the box. It wouldn't go on a cabinet agenda per se. It would be like when we make recommendations for other reports, it would go.
Okay, because I don't think we want to kick off with the whole debate about it.
And you can't refer it to a cabinet member who has no resources to answer the petition, even if they were so mindful to do so. You know,
well, that's true of the council as a whole.
Yeah, we need to come to our decision as we've accepted the petition. We can do nothing else. So what are we going to do?
Just to add, I don't know if this is a bit of a spanner in the works, but off the back of Councillor James's point, part of the recommendation could be the committee's comments and the petitioner considered as part of the proposal if and when it's brought forward.
As and when the scheme is brought forward.
It's entirely.
If it's in our lifetime, Chair, I mean.
Well,
yeah.
Well, it does concern me that if it's only recommendations, not proposals, why have we spent all this money on, or why is not the council, why have they spent all this money on all these consultations things? It's just another waste of, you know. We could have extra buses in Altamira for that.
It's entirely what the
Again, Chair, it's a Transport for Wales consultation, not a council consultation.
I agree, yeah.
We seem to be getting towards send it back to the Welsh Government. Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
By consensus?
Yes, I agree, Chair.
Could that be done via the
Chair.
cabinet member, Chair? I'm just a little bit worried about bypassing cabinet with this. Could it be sent back to Welsh Government via the cabinet member, or is that not a mechanism that's possible?
I don't think that's a mechanism that's reasonable.
I'm just a little bit concerned about bypassing cabinet altogether with this.
So committee can't bypass cabinet, it would be a recommendation to cabinet to write to Welsh Government.
Cabinet would have to agree to write the letter.
Or rather
Right.
cabinet member.
Cabinet, yes.
Okay, that's
Of
fine.
course.
Thanks for clarifying.
If they were mindful to do so, they could send it back to us to ask us to look at it again.
Yep.
Okay, so by consensus, Samantha will look at the mechanisms for doing it, but we intend that this should go back to the Welsh Government as it's not a Newport proposal.
So I've got our conclusion noted as that we're content to note the petition and that we recommend that cabinet forward to Welsh Government for their consideration. If everyone's happy with that,
You okay with that?
or content with it.
And I would suggest to Samantha that if she wants to put that via our legal officers, and if she comes back to us with any small amendments at our next meeting, we can look at that again. But we'd only be looking at the recommendation. Okay? Am I making myself clear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine,
Councillor-
Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Davis?
Yeah, can I just ask then, when Sam sends it now to cabinet, will the discussions that we've had and the points that we've put forward, would they also be included?
I can certainly include a copy of the draft minutes and a link to the recording, that's not a problem.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Linton?
I'm all right, Chair. Yeah, okay.
Right. Okay.
Just my section at the end, Chair, with
Yes, please.
content.
Well, thank you very much for that this morning. It was quite complicated. So we're now moving on to the Scrutiny Officer's reports.
So I haven't included an outcomes table as we're all up to date with that one. I thought I'd save some pages. We do have a couple of outstanding actions that they have been escalated, so hopefully we'll have responses for those soon. On our forward work programme, our next meeting has been cancelled, the April meeting, as you all know. I've made a note about our comments regarding having 2 updates from the anti-poverty strategy. And I've obviously noted our request for a 6-monthly update in the next cycle, if you will. Obviously, I've circulated the forward work programme draft for 26-27. We had a bit of discussion about anti-poverty off the back of that, but if there's any other comments at this stage, I'm happy to take them in sort of shaping that forward work programme. If not, we'll look at it again in our first meeting of the next term cycle.
Councillor Evans?
Yes, sorry, Chair. I think we've got the wrong forward work programme. We've got the one up to May on the attachment. But can I just make a request?
Or is that just a typo on the top?
No, I think it's these. It's the wrong one.
So this is the final. This is this year's. This is 20.
Yeah.
But I haven't put the new one on there
Yeah.
yet. It'll be in the first one of the next cycle, if that makes sense. Sorry.
So, yeah, can I just ask that these actions outstanding, that we get them before our next meeting?
Yeah.
We get them this week, perhaps?
See what I can do.
Thank you.
No problem.
And again, I would just remind you that we're talking about the forward work programme now for 26-27.
Not really.
It's still a matter for the committee if they deem there's anything that they want discussed. You know, never forget that one.
The one thing I will say is that Councillor Evans, I took your point about spacing the meetings a little bit differently. I hope that was okay.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, email me anytime if you've got any comments or questions about forward work programmes.
Sorry,
Councillor
Chair. My mobile hotspot, well, my mobile phone actually restarted, and of course I'm on my hotspot at the moment. I didn't catch where we landed on the petition.
Oh, do you want me to just read out the conclusion? So Councillor
If
James,
that's okay.
that we came to was that we were content to note the petition and that we recommend that Cabinet forward it to Welsh Government for their consideration.
Okay, thank you.
As it is obviously in part directed to them anyway. You know, we felt that it's outside the powers of Newport really to deal with this.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, thank you all for your attendance this morning.
Thank you.